WBOK, 1230 AM New Orleans, a Bakewell Media Company.
New Orleans, welcome back to the Legal Show for our second segment today. Carmen, you really outdid yourself for this show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this whole thing with the homeless court and the issues surrounding the homeless. Now we have from Southeast Louisiana Legal Services, Rita Pereira.
That's correct.
And Jesse Lynn.
Yes, how you doing? Good afternoon.
Welcome to our show. We were just talking with Judge Landry about this new thing they're doing in municipal court where they're trying to get homeless people as they go into shelters. And essentially, I guess what they're doing is if they have attachments, they try to arrange to have transportation and make sure when they get to municipal court on a certain day, they kind of deal with their issues and, you know, take care of it. And y'all also deal a lot. I see you have a homeless advocacy project. And could you tell us about that?
Yes, the Homeless Advocacy Project represents homeless individuals in Orleans and Jefferson parishes. We are funded partly through Unity of Greater New Orleans, but we are a legal services corporation organization, Southeast Louisiana Legal Services, that serves the general indigent population. We are able to help individuals who are homeless with almost any civil legal matter as long as it's not restricted. So we don't do criminal. We wouldn't help someone with a personal injury case, for instance, because that's one of our restrictions. But we get so many different issues coming through the door that we're pretty generalist, I would say.
So what are the issues that you're seeing with the homeless population right now?
Well, a major issue, just to spring off of the earlier segment, is expungements, because a lot of homeless people end up with criminal records, which are a huge barrier, as Judge Landry mentioned, to gaining employment and becoming self-sufficient in the community.
Okay, so I'm anticipating what you're going to say is it's my understanding that if you've got like a felony conviction, you can't get Section 8 housing.
That is correct. It's a huge barrier to housing as well as employment. So people come in usually because they've been turned down for a job or job after job, and they want to get this record off of their record, the criminal matter off of their record, so that they can get a job again. And that is an exception to our program's restriction on criminal matter. We can help individuals with expungements. Unfortunately, it is a pretty expensive process. The fees just went up last year. So in Orleans Parish, it's running about $350. And when we're talking about homeless individuals who don't have a job, coming up with $350 to get a criminal matter expunged from their record is not easy.
Can't they waive that if a person's got no money?
The court has the authority to waive their part of the fee, but there is also a fee that is imposed by the state police department for processing the expungements, and the court doesn't have the authority to waive that.
And how much is that one?
That's about $250 of
Wow, so that's the bulk of it then,
It
it's state
is,
police.
It is.
Okay.
So, I mean, I'm sure that, you know, there is the domestic violence issue, too. I'm sure there's a lot of homeless women and children out there that are trying to start over, and it's really difficult for them to do so. I mean, you know, they have nothing, and they're in a great amount of fear and possible danger. So how is it that you help with, you know, the services that y'all provide to get them the proper legal help that they need?
We have at Southeast Louisiana Legal Services, one of our other units is the Family Law Unit, and they have a domestic violence specialization in the Family Law Unit. So if someone is homeless and comes through us, we will refer them to the correct source, because Jesse and I are not the specialists in that area, but we in our organization have the specialization, and so they can get a temporary restraining order to keep the perpetrator from coming after them. They can get help getting placed in an battered women's shelter. Then they can get help with divorce and custody and visitation, and all of those issues our office handles.
I wanted to talk a little bit too about a new initiative that we have. And in the prior section, Joe Landry talked about how they refer to him as maybe the JOB or GED judge, where he tries to screen them for those possibilities. What happens is also one of the other possibilities is maybe the person's eligible for some type of Social Security disability or some types of veterans benefits. And what we do a lot in our unit is we represent people, helping them get that disability that they're eligible for. One of the new initiatives in this area, it's a statewide initiative. There's 3 pilot areas, Shreveport, Baton Rouge, and New Orleans, and it's called the SOAR Initiative. And what the goal is to help train caseworkers and social workers, help their homeless clients apply for disability benefits, guide them through the process, because a lot of the people that come into our offices as walk-ins, they'll come in and they say, well, I applied for disability, but I never heard anything. And the problem with someone who's homeless is they're constantly moving, they're changing their mailing.
It's not easy to get their mail, yeah.
Exactly. They're changing their mailing addresses. They may get lost in the application process. But what we just had a recent training here in the New Orleans area. Caseworkers from Unity came. We had 55 plus, and they're going to start helping their clients apply, keeping track of not only their application deadlines, but also with the appointments, the consultative examinations that Social Security may order for them, and also submitting medical records to make sure that the Disability Determination Office has a complete picture of what's going on with that person and can make a correct decision as whether they're disabled. And if they're denied, unfortunately that sometimes happens, but we're there to help with the appeals as well. That's what we do a lot of work on.
So I have a question. This might seem like the most basic of all questions, but how do you define the term homeless? What makes a person homeless in y'all's working definition?
Well, we have 2 different grant criteria. We have our chronic homeless grant, which is a very specific grant. We use HUD's definition. We ask them where they spent the night last night, and we go from that criteria. They have to be unaccompanied, have to have been homeless for at least a year or 4 episodes in the past 3 years, and have a disability. They would be considered chronically homeless for us. This is the people you see in and out of shelters. Mm-hmm. And then we have our regular supportive housing grant. This is mainly kind of encompasses more of the situations where maybe their first time that they're homeless. But when we look at people who are homeless, emergency shelters, we look at transitional programs. They can be already in some type of permanent supportive housing program, and they still would qualify for us. One thing, if they are living with friends or family members, we look at the time period of how far in advance do they have a fear of eviction in the next 7 days, and that would be considered homeless for us as well.
Okay, so a person then, if they've been able to find some type of temporary shelter with a friend or a relative, could still be entitled to services then under some of these grants.
Absolutely. If they've been told that they need to be out within the next 7 days, they would be appropriate for our unit. And if they're not appropriate for our unit under our grant, our law firm also has a housing law unit which they may be appropriate for as well.
Well, can you help people to find housing if they need housing?
We have access through Unity and some of the other agencies, like state agencies, so that we can help people apply for specific kinds of housing, especially if they're disabled, or if there are children involved, because each of these housing programs have their own set of criteria. So we try to keep abreast of all of the different kinds of housing situations that are out there. But we do not serve, as a legal program, we don't serve as a real estate agent, for instance, to just help a regular able-bodied person who just happens to be down on their luck to find housing. That's It's just
Well,
something.
let's say, but there are complicated legal questions that sometimes come up with people. And here's one I would throw at you. Let's say a person was qualified for SSI benefits, okay, and they receive an amount, they're getting a check, every month from the government, but actually it turns out the onset of their disability was when they were very young, and they can maybe claim on a parent's Social Security and get more money and have more services available to them. Is that the kind of thing that you would handle?